This is Passengers United.
Hello everyone. So the MTA just released a survey to gauge its Queens bus network redesign launched last year. So if you've been affected, if your bus stop has been changed or removed, if your bus route was changed, if service was cut in your neighborhood, if you were affected by the redesign in any way, fill out this survey now. Now, this survey is only open until February 27th. Honestly, it should be open much longer. It should have been open much longer, but apparently not. It's only open until the 27th. So if you have been affected in any way, fill out this survey now, okay? Fill it out right away. So let's look at the survey. I'm going to show you exactly what to do and how to answer all these questions. So the first question is, in a typical week, how often do you ride the bus in Queens? You will answer as it is appropriate for you. So for this example, I'm just going to choose 5 days a week. Now, of course, you will choose whatever answer is most accurate. And again, make sure to answer this survey and all the questions as accurately and with whatever information you can give them. We'll see what this survey has to offer, and we'll see what options it has for you to submit information to the MTA. So let's continue on. The next question is, have you ridden Queens buses prior to phase 1 of the Queens bus network redesign? So if you've ridden buses in Queens before June 29th, 2025, you will answer yes. If you have not ridden the buses before phase 1 was launched on June 29th, 2025, you will answer no. If you've been affected and you know you've been affected because you rely on Queens buses, you will answer yes. So let's go to the next page. How old are you? Now, this information helps, especially if you are older, if you have a mobility impairment. All of this information is useful for the MTA to evaluate and analyze the data that come in. And it's ultimately more helpful to provide more information than not. You do also have the option to prefer not to respond, but for the purposes of this demonstration, I will choose this. Of course, you are ultimately in charge of what you answer for this question and all of these questions. What is your home digit, 5-digit zip code? This is also useful because the MTA will very likely be conducting spatial analytics and be analyzing the data on a spatial level. And again, it's more helpful for the MTA if you provide as much information as possible. You can also prefer not to respond if you don't want to, but again, it's more helpful for the MTA to know more information than not. So for the purposes of this demonstration, I'll just type something random. Let's go to the next page. So the MTA is asking here, which bus routes do you use most often? And I don't know why the MTA is limiting the amount of options we can choose to up to 2 routes. It is unnecessarily limiting, and ultimately it doesn't allow for the most accurate results to be given unless you take the survey again if the software will let you. But for the sake of this question, answer whichever 2 routes, even if you do realistically take more than 2 routes, answer whichever 2 you most heavily rely on. And of course, if you only have 1 route that you use, you would just choose that one. But if you have 2, you can choose 2. And if there are more than 2 that you take, choose whichever 2 you most heavily rely on, because The software will not let you continue if you have more than 2 selected. So for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to click on the Q82 Rush and the Q110. So let's go to the next page. Now it's going to ask you more descriptive questions about the routes that you selected. So overall, how satisfied are you with whatever the first bus route is that you selected? In this case, in the demonstration, it is Q82 Rush. And it's asking on a 1 to 10 scale, how satisfied are you? 1 to 2 being very dissatisfied, and 9 to 10 being very satisfied. And this is where you would answer as you see fit. For the demonstration, I will choose 5, but ultimately, this is up to you, and please answer this as accurately as humanly possible. Answer this as you see fit. And once you do, click Next. Now, thinking specifically about this same first route, how have the following changed, if at all, since the full Queens Bus Network redesign went into effect on August 31st? Now, if you did not ride this route before the redesign, or if the route did not exist before the redesign, compare it to the route you previously used. So, in this example, let's say you live along Hempstead Avenue, and you used to take the Q110 on Hempstead Avenue, but because the Q110 was diverted and the Q82 replaced it, you're now taking the Q82. So in an example like that, what you would do is you would think about the Q82 that you're taking, or whatever route it is you're taking, and you would also consider the route that you were taking before the redesign. So in this case, if you live along Hempstead Avenue, for example, it would be the 110. But ultimately, this is subjective based on, of course, where you live, which bus routes you rely on, which bus routes you take. So again, this is all subjective. This is just an example. And it's going to ask you about a variety of factors, including travel time, bus-to-bus connections, bus-to-subway connections, service reliability, wait time, crowding, and bus-to-railroad connections. You would answer each of these as you see fit. Now, if, let's say, a bus stop removal did impact you, and it did adversely impact you, in part because it takes longer to get to the bus, then that would fall under travel time, and make sure that travel time is something that you actually fill out. And you would answer all of these questions again as you see fit. Whether travel time was worse, slightly worse, about the same, maybe it was better, or you don't know. You would answer one of these circles for each row. So let's say it was slightly worse travel time, but bus-to-bus connections was somewhat better. You would answer 1 for each of these different criteria. Bus-to-subway connections, hey, maybe it's about the same. Service reliability, hey, much better, but the wait time is much worse. You would answer all of these as you see fit, and make sure to answer these as accurately as possible. And if you don't know, hey, then you don't know, and you choose that. But for the sake of this demonstration, this is just what I'm going to put in. Again, answer as you see fit, and answer as accurately as possible. Let the MTA know exactly how you're feeling, because they can only do so much if you don't tell them the truth, and you don't tell them the full truth. Now let's go to the next page. Do you have any additional comments about your experience on this bus route since the redesign? Now, this is where you can go in depth about your exact experience, how the redesign has affected you. Now, be very, very specific about your experience, what you're experiencing, how the changes have affected you, what is going on. Let the MTA know everything. And if you're not satisfied, if there are clear issues that you're having, if you feel like you're being disproportionately harmed, don't just say, oh, it's not fair that I have to walk longer, or they cut my bus route without explaining anything further, or I have to wait longer, or whatever it may be. If it's simplistic, if it's just a matter of your perception, make sure to elaborate on every single argument that you make. If you're telling the MTA, hey, I'm experiencing serious problems and I feel like I'm being disproportionately harmed. Well, why? Why are you being disproportionately harmed? What's happening to you? Let the MTA know exactly what's going on. So let's say your bus stop was removed and you have to walk 5 or 6 blocks and you have a mobility disability or a health condition. Let them know all of that. What's happening, what you're experiencing, what the conditions are. Be as descriptive as possible. Say everything that comes to mind and make sure to justify every single thing that you claim here, because the MTA needs to know that so that it can make the necessary changes. That's the purpose of this survey, is for the MTA to correct what it has done wrong and adapt the redesign so that it best addresses your needs. It's supposed to be a people-centered process. This is the part of the process where you need to take a step forward and actually take initiative and let the MTA know here's a clear opportunity to do that. Once you explain everything, let's go to the next page. Now it's going to ask you the same questions for the second route if you did choose a second route. So hey, maybe this one is a different answer. You would answer the same questions and whatever it is. Again, your answers are subjective. Try to provide as much of an understanding as possible. And what the MTA will very likely do is group each of these different categories and conduct a spatial analysis based on all of these and analyze the data that come in directly to them from this form. So please, if you know it, don't click don't know, because the MTA needs to know exactly what's going on so they can actually do their jobs and make sure that they're addressing your needs. They can't do anything without knowing what your needs are and without you telling them. They can't read your minds, so please fill this out to the best of your ability. I know I'm repeating myself, but I'm trying to drill that into your head. Once you do that, go to the next page and type in everything that comes to mind about your experience with the changes, how they affected you, and what you need them to do. Make sure that they understand all of that, understand the why. Why is this important? Why should they pay attention to this? Why should they understand this and take this seriously? Why should they take what you're saying seriously? How has this affected you? How has this harmed you? How has this benefited you? They need to know both of those, both the positive and the negative, if there are both. But again, make sure that what you're saying is accurate, that it is truthful, and don't be intimidated because, hey, maybe they won't take this seriously. They need to know everything, and they need to know the whole truth. They need to know everything. Because they did not mention the first and last mile distances as a category in this question, if you were affected by a bus stop removal or a bus stop change or a route change and you have to walk farther and you feel like you're disproportionately harmed because you have difficulty walking or you can't walk, let them know all of that here. What are the conditions? Do you have to cross dangerous intersections, for example? What may be going on that affects your ability to get to and from the bus stop and on and off the bus? What exactly is going on that's resulting in whatever harm or benefit that you're experiencing. Let the MTA know, again, exactly what's going on. Be honest as humanly possible and be as descriptive as humanly possible. Yes, it may be intimidating to write more, but again, the MTA can't do much if they don't have the full picture and if they don't have as close to the full picture as they humanly can, given the limitations of the survey. So once you complete that, answer next. Now, overall, how has your bus experience changed since the full redesign went into effect on August 31st? Again, answer this as honestly as possible. Don't try to sugarcoat what's going on with the changes and how they affected you. Let the MTA know exactly how it is and what your experiences are. So in this case, we're just going to put about the same for the demonstration, but if that's not true, if your experience differs, if it was worse for you, if it was better for you, let them know that. They need to know what exactly is going on. So choose as you see fit. And once you do that, you're going to click Next. Now, it's going to ask you why you chose that specific answer. Why you chose, for example, much worse or much better. Whatever your answer may be. Why you chose that. And again, be as descriptive as possible, be as honest as possible, and let the MTA know exactly what's going on. It's okay if you repeat some of what you said for the previous writable answers, but let the MTA know exactly what's going on, what your experience is, and they need to understand the why, and they are going to be hopefully looking at every single comment that comes in through this survey. So again, make sure that you answer everything honestly. Just saying something like, it's not fair, or something as vague as that doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help them address your needs, and it doesn't help you because you're not giving the MTA what they need to address your needs. So please make sure to tell the MTA exactly what's going on, and don't sugarcoat your experiences. If you feel like you're harmed, let them know that. If you feel like you're benefiting, let them know that as well. But make sure to just be as honest as possible and as descriptive as possible. Once you're done, you click Next. Oh, here we go. Was your usual bus stop removed as part of the redesign? Now this is important. I knew I was... How could they leave that out? Okay. Was your usual bus stop removed? And you would answer yes or no. If you answer yes, let's go to the next question. How much farther do you have to walk now? Now, if you have, of course, a mobility disability, the answers might be different than, let's say, it would be for someone who is able-bodied and can walk faster and would be willing to walk faster. Now, this information is important, and it's particularly important because if your bus stop was removed and you feel like you're being harmed by that because you have to walk farther, let them know that. Here's an opportunity to do exactly that. And if you have to walk, and just think about it. How much farther do you have to walk now to your new bus stop? And this is only one way. This is not combining the walk you have to get to take to the bus stop and the walk that you have to take from your destination stop to your destination. Choose, and if there are multiple stops that were removed and you have to go to a new stop, just also factor that in. If there's one that's longer, I'd say go for the longer one because that's more critical for the MTA to know. Let's say that they added a service where you work or where your doctor's office is, but they cut the bus stop where your home is and you now have to walk 15 minutes instead of 4 minutes, or instead of 6 minutes, let them know the greater impact. So that would be the one that's affected you more seriously. So in that case, for the sake of this question, err on the side of the longer first or last mile distance. The longer distance that you have to travel and the longer you have to walk. So for the sake of this demonstration, I'm gonna select this option. Of course, it's subjective for you, and then you would choose next. Now, one thing that was not addressed in that question was, what are the conditions that affect your ability to get to or from the stop? And that question only concerns travel time. However, if you also are impacted by, let's say, uneven sidewalks, or sidewalks that are too narrow, or your stop doesn't have a shelter anymore, you would include that information in one of the written fields that we saw before, if not coming up soon. So, next question. Before it launched, were you aware of the Queens Bus Network redesign? If you had no idea before it was implemented, you would select no. If you did know about it before implementation on June 29th or August 31st, 2025, you would select yes. And once you do that, you're going to click next page. How prepared did you feel for the redesign changes? If you had no idea and you went to your original bus stop only to find out that the bus was not stopping there, you would choose presumably not at all prepared. If you, for example, you've heard about the redesign, but hey, there wasn't really enough public input, I wasn't involved in the process because I had no idea about that, but I only found out after the fact, then maybe ultimately it's subjective for you. But again, make sure to answer this as honestly and accurately as possible. So for the demonstration purposes, I'm going to select this question, this answer, and I'm going to choose next. Now, where did you get information about the redesign? Now, in this question, you would select all that apply, whether you went to workshops or open houses, pop-up events at bus stops or in the middle of nowhere, community board meetings if you went to those, if you spoke with MTA staff at bus stops, if none of the above, you would select that, and if it was other, then you would specify what that was. And if you did not get any information about the redesign, you would select none of the above. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to choose all of these and other. Let's say you saw a sign on the bus for the public hearing, or the public hearing is not listed as an option. So let's say you went to the public hearing. You would choose that, or whatever it is that you ended up using to get more information. And once you select what you end up selecting, you will click on next page. Now, how helpful was this source in understanding the redesign? And you would be answering for everything that you selected. So let's say you selected all of those. If you only selected one, you would only answer for each row, similar to how we did this before. And you would answer whether it was not helpful at all, not too helpful, neither helpful nor unhelpful, somewhat helpful, or very helpful. And you would select your answers for each of these, for each row, whether the workshops or open houses were helpful. Let's say they were somewhat helpful. Bus stop pop-ups. Hey, they were not helpful at all. Community board meetings. I was on the fence about that, but you would choose what is truthful and accurate for you. This is just a demonstration. So I'm going to just choose these for demonstration purposes. And once you complete that, you will select next page. Next question, did you receive a pamphlet with information about route changes before or after the redesign? If you did, you will know if you did, probably because they have that distinct black and yellow design aesthetic, and it will depend on where you got the pamphlet. Maybe it has your route, maybe it doesn't, maybe it just paints an overall picture. If you received a pamphlet, you would choose yes. And if you didn't, you would choose no. So let's say for demonstration purposes, I'm going to select yes. But again, choose as you see fit and try to recall. Do you remember getting any piece of paper or any pamphlet with information about the redesign? And once you do that, you're going to click next. How helpful was the pamphlet in informing you about changes? Did it give you the information necessary not only to understand the changes, where the new routes were going, where the stops are, if that's something that you need information on, if it just gives you a general understanding, or if there's information that wasn't included that should have been included. Like for example, if you wanted to see your old routes in comparison with the new routes, and you couldn't see that, or you couldn't get a better understanding about your bus stop, given if your bus stop was eliminated. All that information is extremely helpful in determining how you answer this question. So for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to check the middle one. Next page. How helpful was signage or information at the bus stop? For example, green or yellow inserts in guide-a-ride boxes. And guide-a-ride boxes are the paper strips that you see on bus stop poles. And there's a little insert. It used to show bus schedules. Quite often it just shows public service information. But during the implementation process of the redesign, the MTA also inserted yellow or green inserts in these boxes to indicate changes to your bus service. Let's say a stop was removed, and the MTA put in a yellow slip saying the bus was no longer going to stop here, or this route was going to change, and this route stopped here, but this route didn't. If you felt like those were helpful, you would select as you see fit, or if it wasn't helpful, or whatever your answer may be. Or if you didn't see any of these, you would choose I did not see any signage or information. There were many bus stops in Queens that did not get any of these signs or inserts in the guide-a-ride slots. Some bus stops don't have guide-a-ride slots, especially those with older designs before the current lollipop style bus stop sign came to be. So if you didn't see any signage at a bus stop when it was removed, or changes were made to the bus route, you would choose this answer. But if you did see any, you would choose one of these to let the MTA know how helpful or unhelpful it was for you. So for the sake of the demonstration, I'm going to select this one. Again, choose as you see fit, and then we're going to click next page. Now, since the full redesign went into effect, have you noticed any changes to the destination sign text shown on the front of buses? So these are the electronic signs on the front of the bus that show the route and the destination, and in some cases, some major streets that the bus route travels on. If you notice any changes to that, let's say you now see a rush indicator, or it shows a different destination, you would select, yes, I noticed a change. If you didn't notice a change, you would select, no, you didn't. Or if you just don't know, if that's not something you're keeping track of, or you're just not sure in general, you would select not sure. So for the sake of the demonstration, I'm going to select this. And now it's going to ask, how clear is the current destination sign text shown on buses describing where the bus is traveling? In other words, when you look at the sign on the front of the bus or the side of the bus, is it clear that that's the route and that's the destination? Is it clear to you where the bus is going and what the bus route is based on what you see on these destination signs that are facing outside the bus? So you would, of course, answer as you see fit, as is accurate. For the sake of the demonstration, I'm going to select this one just so that we can continue, and then press next page. Now, how do you get information about bus routes or schedules? Now, you would select for this question all that apply, whether it's the MTA's website, mta.info, MTA bus time, whether you use text messages and you type in your stop code or stop ID, and you get alerts based on that, or you use the bus time website, the MTA app, signage on the bus stops that should show in clear detail what the bus route is and the destination, as well as the name of the stop, printed maps, whether you see the map on board the bus or you get it from wherever you get the map from. Other apps that are not created by the MTA, like Google Maps or the Transit app or whatever app you use. If it's not the MTA app, you would select this one. If it's something completely different, you would select other and then specify what exactly it is. So let's say it's from us, for example. You would select other and you would say, hey, we were the ones who gave you that information because you found out that information from us directly if we were out in the field helping you, or if you were following us on social media, whatever it may be, or you found out another way. Then you would select other and you would specify what exactly that is. And, of course, if none of the above are true, you would select none of the above. But for the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to select these 5, for example. Again, the answer that you select will be up to you. Now let's go to the next page. And this is where, as we saw before, you will evaluate how helpful each of these resources were in understanding the new bus routes and bus schedules. And that includes if you selected other and you specified what that is. So for the sake of the demonstration, hey, let's say the MTA's website was not too helpful. Also remember, we have a Queens Bus Network Redesign portal on our website. So if you use that, then you would select other, you can type that in, and then you would also be able to gauge how helpful we were in this survey, for example. So for the sake of the demonstration, I'm going to select that this was somewhat helpful. MTA app, signage on bus stops was very helpful, and of course we hope that we were as helpful as humanly possible with our efforts as well. But please, don't feel like you have to say we were if we weren't. We're always looking for room to improve. Be honest with us. I mean, we probably won't see this until we request the data, but again, answer everything as accurately as possible. And once you do that, you're going to click Next, And now it's going to ask, do you have any other comments or feedback about the Queens Bus Network redesign you would like to share? Now, this is vitally important. If there was not something that you didn't address earlier on that you feel is critically important, again, if there is, if something comes to mind now that you've answered all of these questions and you feel like it's necessary for the MTA to know, again, more information for the MTA is better. However, make sure that you're addressing all of your needs as accurately as possible. Let's say that there is something that comes to mind that wasn't part of any of the previous questions. Again, let the MTA know exactly what's going on and what you need the MTA to do to accommodate your needs. This is supposed to be a people-centered process, and this is an opportunity for you to express exactly what you need and make your needs and concerns and your voice heard by the MTA. So take advantage of this opportunity to the fullest. Once you do that, you're going to click Next. You're almost done with the survey. Now, these are useful. Again, more information that you can convey to the MTA is better because this is how they analyze information. They analyze demographic information. So if you're able to and you feel comfortable doing so, please answer honestly. You can also prefer not to respond. I'm just going to put this for the sake of the demonstration, but if you feel comfortable sharing your gender, it is, of course, useful. And the more information the MTA has from this survey, the better, so that they can best analyze the data and ultimately, hopefully, ensure that your needs are accommodated. You would select whatever is applicable and then select Next Page. What is your approximate household income? Now, this may sound personal, and you can prefer not to respond if you'd like. However, this information is vitally important because it allows the MTA to assess whether there are any correlations or any trends or any patterns in the data, or whether certain experiences are tied to income or sex or gender or race or whatever it's going to ask here. And this is just one of those ways for the MTA to evaluate, did the redesign have any disproportionate impacts for lower income households or lower income populations in Queens? This is a way for the MTA to retrieve that information and ultimately get a more accurate sampling and be able to analyze the data more accurately and more easily too. So for the sake of the demonstration, I'm going to choose one of these. But again, choose as you see fit. If you don't feel comfortable providing this information, you can choose prefer not to respond, but there's only so much the MTA can do without it. And that's what the MTA is going to be using it for, is to help assess these larger impacts and disproportionate burdens as well. So once you do that, you're going to go to next page. Do you identify as having one or more of the following disabilities? Now, this is vitally important. If you have a mobility disability or if you have a health condition or whatever it is that affects your ability to walk farther to and from a bus stop, get on or off a bus, or wait for a bus with ease, especially if your stop was removed and your stop had a bus shelter with seating, for example. You lost seating, that makes it harder for you if you have a mobility disability. Now, again, you can prefer not to respond if you'd like, but please, I urge you, give the MTA what they need to make the proper analysis and to get as complete of a picture as humanly possible. So I urge you, self-identify here. The MTA needs to know this. They need to know this so they can most accurately assess these impacts, your experiences, and what they need to do to accommodate you and make necessary changes. So for the sake of this example, we're going to choose this, and if it's not listed above, you can make that known as well and specify in this field if you do choose that it wasn't listed above. And if you don't have a disability, you would click no. If you have a health condition, I would say choose this and specify that it's a health condition. Or you're a senior citizen, you're an older adult, and you have difficulty walking. Well, that affects your mobility, so make sure that you can select that as well. And once you're done, choose next. Now, this question asks, the MTA values customer feedback and responses to surveys like this one. They are important to understand your concerns and improve your experience. Are you willing to share your opinions with us in future research studies? I would say yes, they need to know this. They need to know because ultimately they're the ones who are conducting these analyses. They're the planners. The planners are supposed to serve you. That's their job. And you are, as a member of the public and as an affected rider, you are a subject matter expert on your lived experiences and the conditions that happen in your community, along your transit lines, anything that affects you. You are a subject matter expert, and the MTA has a responsibility to treat you as such. So honestly, answer yes, because ultimately they need to make sure that they're taking all of this, one, seriously, and also that they have the ability and the consent to actually make sure that they're taking your needs into account and that they can actually use the information that you provide them to do exactly that and ensure your needs are met. So I would honestly select yes, and then once you do that, click next page. What the MTA is asking is whether you would be willing to share your opinions in future research studies. Now, you can choose yes or no, but honestly, I would just go with yes because the more that they can get, the better, and ultimately use your power as a subject matter expert in your community and of your lived experiences. Use that to your potential and use that to the greatest extent that you can. And if you provide, if you select yes, you would provide an email address. So for the sake of this, I'm just going to put this here for a demonstration. If you don't feel comfortable sharing your email address, you would select no. Presumably that question won't pop up, but for the sake of this, we're going to choose that, and there you go. Your response has been recorded. So that's how you fill out this vital survey that the MTA just released to gauge your experiences with the Queens Bus Network redesign, and ultimately the MTA needs all of this vital information to best take your needs into account and make the necessary changes. The MTA cannot do that unless it has the most complete picture, and this is the best opportunity possible to make sure that at least something gets done. So I thank you very much for watching until the end. This is how you fill out that survey. Again, make sure that this gets done before February 27th. That's the window that you have to complete this survey. Do it now, please. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. To stay up to date with Passengers United, please subscribe and follow us on social media. Learn more about us and support us at passengersunited.org.